I am now live and wearing headphones because I'm still trying to figure out how to be very happy with my first karaoke challenge. Struggling with photograph in Ed Sheeran obviously did a fantastic job with the falsetto, and I um, clearly where he's practiced falsetto is miles beyond anything that I would ever dream. Right? I would never imagine to consider myself anything like Ed Sheeran. I'm just trying to find something that's smooth and comfortable that I'm happy with, where I'd be able to respect the intention, I should say, of the time and place that it's used, and not abuse it by default. I certainly understand lots of times when people sing other songs by other people, there's a immediate impression to try to match everything, key, pitch, tone, the whole nine. And if that's just not the way you're hardwired, then you have to, make do with what your body allows you to, or at least what your voice does. So I've been muddling with that still, and I'm just gonna keep working away at it. I got tired of it though, right? Because you can only hear the same song over and over for so long before you need to take a time out. And so I did. Currently doing some work right now. It is updating a worksheet, and I figured this is a good time to catch up on that stream of consciousness that I was mumbling about last night. There's no plot to this video. Likely is going to go for a while, because that is precisely what a stream of consciousness is to flow. And it's, I may as well go ahead and take advantage of the opportunity, because, well, who's going to stop me, right? The one, like, the first thing that I remember last night because I remember when I really wanted to have an outlet, it was the worst possible time, because I was laying in bed, and I was not interested at all in getting to my Mac and starting to blog or do anything along the lines of some sort of audio recording or video bit. So just kept it in the back of my head, and if I felt inspired to continue to talk about it, I would. And so the first one would be HRT. I've been on hormone replacement therapy for just over a year, and it's with no surprise, it was really exciting 10 days ago to get that anniversary, and this is the part of my life where things are going to get very interesting. I remember just before that 1 year rollover, I was talking to one of the nurses, and they were asking me how things are, like just how I am, right? Like how's transition going and whatnot, and I really could have no complaints, because I also had no expectations, right? Where I just along for the ride. And I know that a lot of trans individuals have a concept in their head of what their end version of themselves they want to look like, what they want to aspire as. And I remember in a past life, that was a lot of my fears when it came to even coming out, thinking that, oh my gosh, if I come out, then I've got to go ahead and get facial feminization surgery, and I got to do this, and I got to do that, and gotta. And then that didn't take long for it to wash away after I really allowed myself to love myself, right? And instead of creating an expectation of what I'm supposed to be, really adhere to the policy of it's okay to be you. And so with that, and like honestly, even like when I was just talking about voice earlier, similarly enough, where I told myself a year and a bit ago that there was no way I was coming out until voice was absolutely perfect, matching a key that would be exclusively feminine and blah blah blah. And I'm no stranger at all to being trans. I've been trans my entire life, and with no surprise that there'd be many times that I would just allow myself to experience myself as an outlet, but it was nothing as per living full time or whatnot. And so I created all these benchmarks that I told myself I was supposed to achieve, and I've mentioned many times in previous videos and clips and conversations that I threw it out the door because my expectations meet. Surprise world, right? I'm not going to just fall in line and be okay with it if that line is quite blurred. And so with that, I extended that policy just in terms of my own body, which is not a terrible thing. But like I said, that I feel a lot of people in trans communities, especially growing up with capturing as much information as they can online, and almost to a naive sense, where receiving feedback from how other people have gone through their own development. Because realistically, transitioning is like puberty 2.0. And so when they go through their own development, that they believe that the results from others would be mimicked upon themselves, and that's very much the last possible thing because everybody's unique and everybody's unique, and so with that regardless of the um, the medication you take, obviously there's a lot of science to everything about it, right? But when it's all said and done, how your body receives, right, or adjusts its levels of estrogen and testosterone and everything in between, that that even though you can have a certain like pile of numbers, that doesn't necessarily equate to hair loss or breast growth or hip development, whatever, right? You can carry on with all the things that happen with transitioning, body parts working or not working or whatever. All of those things are super variable to the individual themselves, and I've always been fully aware about that. And so when I was speaking with the nurse, when she's asking, how things have been going for me for the last year, I'm like, I don't know, right? You guys are the doctors. You take my blood, right? You just let me know how things are, right? Like, it's up to you guys to tell me if things are not right, because if I'm where I'm supposed to be, right, then the body's reacting accordingly to it. I can't complain, right? As long as I'm healthy, right, and everything's fine, this is who I am, and I'm not going to argue it. Um, and it's funny with that because it was back in October, which evolved into a December, that there was a question mark about some values that they saw on some blood work, which led to me needing to get an ultrasound on my liver. That's not entirely resolved yet, but it's been curious, just because of the fact that like I'm not going to stand up and turn around or whatever, but it was a lot in my head about the experience because I keep hearing like when I get the ultrasound and just have a conversation about fatty liver disease, and then especially like of things to pretty much remedy fatty liver disease or whatnot would be things like minimize your snacking, exercise regularly, don't drink, don't pretty much just like I don't do any of that, right? Like my snack is an apple, right? I work out once in a while. I don't drink, right? I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. So like all of those things that would essentially all get revolved around what would be proposed as a sedentary lifestyle. That ain't it, right? And so Dr. Google, of course, I go to Dr. Google because who doesn't? And you look deeper, and I'm like, okay, neat. And so obviously that's been on the back of my mind. But recent chat I had with the nurse was like, no, things are back to normal, so which is good. But then my family doctor, we've got I just had another blood test earlier today just to see if we could figure out what happened, right? Because if it's related to HRT or if it's just something genetic or if it was just a blip in the radar or whatever it may be. So that was something. So, but nonetheless, though, going back to the point about the HRT, that apparently things are fine and normal and dandy, which is good. And so same thing where the nurse is asking how things are, and I smile and nod, and I said, like, crank things up because, like, as far as medically recommended, because I'm as full time as it gets, right? It's not like one day, someday I'll go into the office and be like, yeah, do you guys notice something a little different, right? Like I'm far past that point in my life. And so same sort of idea. I've got absolutely zero expectations, but if anything on the doctor's side is like, I don't want to call it fast tracking because that's not the right way to put it, but anything that would essentially, stay in line, right? In like I said, puberty 2.0, right? And just turn the dial up to 11 or whatever, then go ahead. So my prescription's actually been upped. So that'll be interesting with the next well, it's whenever what I've got is done, then it'll turn up. But nonetheless, so let's just assume the next 3 to 6 months are going to be kind of interesting, especially as with this stage of HRT, there just continues to be further development and so on. And it's funny with that by development, because I was saying that tongue in cheek to Gail, where if there's anything that I could um, dispute, right, and it wouldn't even be anything about dysphoria, right? It's just like, summer's coming up. Summer's coming up, right? Just summer's coming up. Wouldn't be opposed to, right? And so I was like, okay, now I see where you're going with that. And it's funny because, like I said, it's dysphoria is the absolute last piece. I've loved my body more than ever now, and just summer, right? Wouldn't mind getting a couple more curves, you know, speed it up a little bit. but yeah, no, I've just been ecstatic with the ride, right? Zero expectations, because I'm just allowing myself to be myself, and I couldn't be more happy with that. I hope that message comes across to other trans individuals who see this video, whether or not that they're beginning their transition or questioning their transition or anything along those lines. Your expectations are yours, and then especially out of that, nix them. Turn off all expectations, because your body, you don't tell your body to do what it wants. You don't wake up one day and be like, all right, body, give me curly hair, right? It doesn't work like that. Maybe it does. Maybe I haven't tried. Maybe I'm wrong, right? But your body's predispositioned for a lot of things, and so just sit back and enjoy the ride. Follow things as they are medically, and then whatever happens, right? You can't argue that. And yeah, then it's been in the back of my head regarding HRT, just because after 1 year of HRT, then you are, at least in Manitoba, then after that benchmark, you are allowed, should you want, to reach out to your care practitioner about more gender affirming things, right? And of course, whether it's FTM, right, or MTF, or MTX, or FTX, or XTM, or XTF, or XTX, right? Like, we can go on. All of those are, after 1 year, you can reach out to your medical practitioner and say, yeah, no, I'm ready. And no, I shot an email, or pardon me, email via voice, right? So it'd be a voicemail to my social worker, and just pretty much asked to see what needs to be done about some of that little bit of work. It's funny, I get super sheepish when it comes to just bits and pieces, right? Like, I've always been very meek and modest when it comes to talking, body parts, especially anything reproductive. But nonetheless, though, I don't even know why, right? I really don't. Well, actually, if I had to really roll back, it probably just goes back to the fact of, like, I was never taught about the birds and the bees, right? Like, just ultimately, like, I figured it all out by myself, much like anything else I've done in my own life, right? Pretty much learned everything by myself as I needed to learn it. But yeah, like, even knowing that, at the age of 4 or whatever, I was in the wrong place, and so I just didn't want to talk about whatever. And then furthering that, being so surrounded in a oh man, I just just the dialogue that comes out of some people's mouths as if it's normal and acceptable is just beyond me, and I just can't relate to it. So nonetheless, though, yeah, no, I can't, and then blush and whatever, but yeah, it's yeah. So I left a voicemail with my social worker, so I'm assuming I'll end up getting a call tomorrow or Monday or something like that, just to find out the next steps, because am I'm not interested in anything like critically gender affirming, right? Let's put it that way. I'm not itching for anything like vaginoplasty or whatnot. I like what I have. I like who I am. Pretty proud of who I am. I think I dealt some pretty good cards, right? Really good cards. And who knows what my next relationship's going to be like? I've said it before. Who knows what's necessary, what's not necessary. But that said, I'm not having kids anytime soon. In no rush to have kids. Not planning to have kids. And so that's something that I could go ahead and affirm to get taken care of now. So that's part of the reason for the phone call, if anything, just to get rid of a little excess baggage, right? Pardon the pun. And what that also does, though, is on a medical side, is it removes the need for one prescription, right? So it's not necessarily just a thing on the checklist, but it's also a functional value, right? Where I'm taking a prescription to literally stop what's happening in the factory downstairs, and so shut down the factory, don't need a prescription anymore. Pretty straightforward when it comes to something like that. Um, and then just basic aesthetics and whatever too. But and the reason why I'm talking about it candidly is that there is a still to this day a very 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 binary expectation about who has what, and it shouldn't be the public to tell me what I do with my body or how I do with my body or what I have on my body or what I don't have on my body, right? And that's not going to change, right? At any point, if for any literally if for any reason that I do anything involving a very major surgery downstairs is purely because of aesthetic and vain reasons, honestly, right? And so if I choose to go ahead and put myself through a massive procedure with a whole lot of follow-up and a lot of medical like acknowledgement of what's going on is exclusively vanity, because like I said, I'm grateful as a trans woman to not have very paralyzing gender dysphoria that many trans individuals have. That is a feeling that I can't relate with, and I feel terrible because that is often a like so often just a key flag, right? Because myself, I've been trans from day one, ultimately because my insides felt different than what I was told what my outsides are supposed to be, if that makes sense. I literally just fundamentally felt like I was being pushed into a corral that I wasn't that it didn't vibe with me at all. None of it vibed with me. Like, sure, I can make it work, right? But it totally wasn't my vibe. So yeah, no, anyway, that was it was interesting leaving a voicemail, like especially when I hung up the phone. Like, okay, so that's that, right? And it was nothing unlike when I put my name change documents in the mail, right? Put it in the registered post and send it down to Vital Stats, and as soon as it hits the bottom in the mailbox, it's like, okay, okay, I just asked for a new name. Here it comes, right? And then you sit back and just wait. Obviously, you can't do anything about it, but just the process and the very surreal moment that it was of like, wow, here it is. And then the steps that came along with it along the way, getting a letter back, with okay, well, here's your receipt. We're taking all your money. Your name's cool, and let's get her going, right? And you get the fingerprinting done and get that affirmed and everything. And then when I still, oh man, I still remember when I still remember how I felt when my new birth certificate at all showed up um, in my mailbox, and it was just such a surreal experience because it it was from that moment. It was that moment right then that was my finish line. Right? As I said, I understand lots of trans individuals will have their own versions of finish lines, different expectations or wants or needs or goals. And mine was, I just want my name. And as soon as I got my name, like I said, everything else is just stuff, formalities, right? Got my driver's license changed, right? Got my all my tax stuff changed, right? Got my the health certificate changed, right? And just credit cards changed, bank stuff's changed, right? Just all those things. When it's all said and done, though, those are I don't want to highlight them or dismiss them equally because I've been married and divorced, and hindsight being what it is, I really, really never realized how much work my then wife was going through to just change her name on all these documents. You'd think it was just like 4 or 5 forms and call it a night. Your name's all over the place, right? When it comes to like I said, credit card and banks and insurances and so on and so on and so on. And I never realized, and I had an absolute gain of respect in reflection to be like, wow, that's a whole lot of stuff. And so with that, like I said, though, those aren't things for me that were like accomplishments because it's part of the territory. Change your name, got to do the things. But oh man, as soon as I saw my name show up in the mail, that was just amazing. So yeah, that like I said, it was a surreal call. I hate being on the phone in the first place. I so hate making phone calls. Um, but yeah, to make the call and leave the voicemail and hang up and be like, okay, I just pretty much said I'm okay with getting my stuff's taken care of. It's that was something. So we'll see how that goes. It's been like I said, I feel like this ramble's entirely plotless. Because a lot of the clips that I've had have been focused on a topic or a point, but overall, just how things have been lately have been an experience. There's no surprise with everything else. I've been communicating when it comes to sports. I actually have a meeting, a phone call with an organization tomorrow regarding policies, and Sport Manitoba is following up right away. I actually read a fantastic policy that I proposed very, very minor edits, as a matter of fact, literally very tiny edits for the disc sport coming off of Sport Manitoba's site, and that actually is in reference or in relevance, pardon me, to the chit chat I'm having tomorrow, because the framework is fantastic. It's simple, and there were just some basic points that I wanted to address. And I think sitting on that board going forward is going to be very helpful to identify those things in other programs. I actually would like to take that template and utilize it across the board because it's very flat and simple, right? It's the most important part when it comes to the dialogue that I was pointing out was and it's exactly as what I've been preaching for the longest time about ensuring that the very first instance of in any resources is to be very clear on what the terms male or female or a man and woman would mean, and it is in there, right? And the way that it's articulated is along the lines of, in this document, anything that references a female, woman, or woman, references to all female, or to all individuals who identify as female, and the same thing for male. The opportunities that I saw with that came in two strikes. The first one is, it is smooth and smooth, like you can't argue it. The challenge is that it's too smooth. Just like when we look at all the terms and conditions on any website, right? We just scroll and scroll and scroll, and when we're done scrolling, we scroll a little more because I'm never going to read it, and you're still looking for giant red letters sticking out in front of you about something you have to pay attention to. And it's similar in this sense, because one of the controversies when it comes to trans athletes in sports, it doesn't happen during reading the rules. It comes to on the field of play or something along those lines. And then, of course, one of the biggest points of contention would be, I never saw that in the rules. So in this case, what I was identifying is to make it just a little more lengthier to read, right, while keeping the same language, so that it is more difficult to skim over and acknowledge. And so in that sense, I'm trying to remember how I phrased it off the top of my head, but it was along the lines of, in this handbook, a female, woman, or woman are, it's going to bother me now, I'm just going to take a look here. It is, it was, how did I phrase it? For the purpose of this document, woman, woman, female, woman, woman, female, refers to all cisgender, transgender, and intersex individuals identifying as female. Male, man, men refers to all cisgender, transgender, and intersex individuals identifying as male. Non-binary refers to all individuals who don't identify exclusively to female or male, including but not limited to two-spirit, genderqueer, gender fluid, agender, and gender non-conforming. So to have something like that, just a little bit of a bigger block, so it's tougher to skip over, plus also being more inclusive by acknowledging acknowledging, right, which I find to carry significantly more strength than just a flat universal globalization, right? Like it's almost too brief by just saying, yeah, everybody who's female, and I respect that, I completely do. And like I said, the goal though is catching the eyes on acknowledging that instead of something after the fact. The non-binary bit was actually kind of important in that guide as well, because they do follow a good practice when it comes to the programming. The challenge of having non-binary athletes in their guide is that's and at first that bit earlier that I mentioned, that non-binary, wasn't even in there in the first place. It was just male and female, right? So non-binary also needs to be visible and defined, and also kept open. But then, as I mentioned, in terms of the programming, right, that when it comes to the registration, you can offer female, male, non-binary, and prefer to not disclose. And both of the latter would be the athlete's discretion as to the division that they prefer to participate in. But again, that's where it ended, which I found to be unique, ironic, and, well, kind of hypocritical, because the further explanation about the programming was acknowledging gender diversity and gender equity, and especially highlighting women athletes in sports, which is obviously a massive thing. It's not taken away from any of that at all, right? And assuring that they want to make sure that there is even gender representation in all the sports. And so with that, they even saying, like, make sure there's one female coach and one male coach per sport. Which led me to, where's the non-binary coach, right? That even when it comes to the athleticism, and don't get me wrong, not to say that non-binary athletes don't exist, right? But what I am saying though is that if we had to stop the planet right now, right, that it's way easier for individuals overall to be like, yes, male athletes exist, yes, female athletes exist, and they'll start scratching their head about anything else beyond that. But when it comes to female and male, which we've already determined to be fluid, right, but with no acknowledgement about non-binary, in terms of the same idea, why not have a non-binary coach available per sport as well too? Because even if it wasn't to be at the athleticism, the mentorship of existing is huge, 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 huge. Anybody could teach a sport. Anybody can teach a sport, right? But to mentorship about the person, right? About the belonging, that you can do it. You have a place here. You are valid, right? That is huge. Absolutely massive. So I hope that goes forward. And even the same enough when the board, it's a policy I love, and I stand behind it on multiple boards that I've seen, right, of making sure of gender equity to not have a difference of one in terms of, a difference of one when it comes to the amount of seats. So in this case, if there's 9 seats based on the different positions, that there'd be no difference of one between genders. And if it was to be exclusively binary, then that would mean, let's say, there's 5 women and 4 men. Right. However, again, right, that goes back to why is there at least registration for non-binary athletes, but nothing about non-binary admin? So I scribbled that in there as well, tossed it back, and we'll just see how it goes. Because same sort of concept where, like, we want to make sure that if we're talking about gender inclusivity, be it right, like and I believe honestly it was an innocent oversight. But as I mentioned, that's why I'm also kind of grateful to be sitting on this board to help address these things, because you need to kind of live the life to recognize where the errors are. And so anyway, like I said, that's on deck too. But yeah, no, otherwise everything's been kind of samesies, right? We're continuing to advocate accordingly as advocating is necessary. I've had people reach out to me just regarding for other resources and whatnot. I really appreciate seeing stuff like that. Up here, not terribly long ago, asked how just for some advice about dialogue inside schools, right? About how to just common things that were said of habit, and wondering if it would be offensive to somebody who was non-binary. And I was like, you know what? The first thing that you're doing that's more than many others is acknowledging and just realizing. And so here's a quick, easy fix without you changing you, right? You changing your background, your culture, right? Your own habits, right? But just rephrase, retinker just a tiny little bit so that you're not landing on any gender definitions. You're laughing. Another peer of mine was just asking about LGBTQ plus resources to carry forward to management. It looks like there's a new programming regarding mental health, and that they're working on. And so just to be reached out about, hey, how are do you have any resources that that you can advise that we can go ahead and implement, right, or at least look into? So it was really nice to just be part of that. Had a meeting, like I mentioned a little while ago, with CMHA, was earlier this week. It was good to get the ears there. I've got more correspondence with Clinic. Had that happen earlier this week too, so that's nice to see that, especially to look at creating solutions just for issues that have been happening in the city. I don't really need to repeat it because I'm sure everybody's already on board with the story. But yeah, no, it's like I say, it's part of the reason for a stream of consciousness, because it's it's a lot of social systemic malfunctions that allow our community to just think that everything's hunky dory without really recognizing how not so hunky dory things are. Especially to have like a small business reach out to me to ask for, hey, do you mind helping me explain the scenario, because our customers are feeling unwell because of some of this systemic abuse that's going on. And so I'm more than happy to help advocate for the company, and made sure to bring that forward to a series of individuals that I've kept in the loop, including politicians, of at what point is it reasonable for you know small businesses to be asking for assistance from abusers. And so it's like I said, carry on with some of that conversation that's been evolved, including again, more conversation with Trans Manitoba, Rainbow Resource Centers included in that too. So it's nice to see just further conversation of how can we go ahead and make our community better and stronger. It was nice to get a one of my peers really enjoy just instead of texting a lot of time, we'll just like send voice messages back and forth, which I've actually grown to adopt as a practice that I enjoy because it's inconvenient if the voice message gets erased, if it's lengthy, and you're not done. But it's also super convenient because, again, you can allow something very similar, just a stream of consciousness in terms of being able to reply and articulate and just play back, right? Where, yeah, there's significantly more words than that would show up in a text, but it's also uninhibited. Yeah. And then also uninterrupted, especially with vocal dialogue, and sometimes it's just easier to articulate your thoughts with your head, right, instead of trying to figure out the right words for it. And bonus points that you actually get to hear tone as well, which you don't get in a text message. So I really appreciate those. And one of the things I really enjoyed hearing from him in the messages is he knows the campaign that I'm campaigning, and he wants to help. He wants to, do everything that he can within his ability to just continue helping, or to continue to help strengthen our community, which is fantastic. I absolutely love that. And I've got a few ideas in the back of my head. It's and this is part of the reason why I've reached out to platforms that have clout, because there's visibility that they have that are beyond individuals that, like, let's call it a level like me. Nonetheless, though, that's not to say that I can't be a squeaky wheel loud enough. But I also I know what I'm doing. But yeah, no, I've got a couple ideas in terms of some plans and projects and some delegations. And one thing I would like to end up doing is creating and if not by creating, at least delegate the creation of an organization. Um, Mindful to the goals that I'm working on, especially considering that one of the primary goals is well, as I mentioned, the absolute systemic malfunction of our city, especially for it to allow so many things that are just massive failures, particularly a corporate citizen being flatly unethical to marginalized communities during a social global crisis, right? Like blatantly unethical, right? And discriminatory, and on and on and on and on. The fact that on the political level that hasn't been addressed by media, by politicians, right? The mayor, right? For example, to be like, yeah, we want to have a stronger, healthier city, and these things are important to a stronger, healthier city, is asinine, for the lack of a better word. And so again, right, those are things that I'm just continuing to work on, because when it's all said and done, it's not an individualized goal. This is the concept of, do we want to see this happen to the next kid, right? Like, even when it comes to, like, if a politician asks, well, what can I do? It's like, what would you do if your child was on the receiving end of this behavior? What would you use your political platform to do? And even more so, what would you use your own personal privileges to do? Who would you flip the Rolodex through to? Who would you go ahead and reach out to? Who would you tap on the shoulder and dial in a favor? Who would you use to go ahead and support your desire to protect your kid and the next kid in line, right? Like, it's those types of things. It's that amount of critical thinking that doesn't get done. Everyone's so stuck on their 9 to 5 and thinking that the world's better as soon as they get to go home, eat their fish and chips, and watch Wheel of Fortune. It's not how the world works. I wish that my head was in the sand that far so I could watch an episode of Wheel of Fortune one day. I wish. Right? And the fact, though, that it just seems like people think that the world turns off as soon as the business door is locked is just nuts. right? And so same thing that I was talking about just a couple moments ago, as to challenging these individuals who have position of privilege, right, for lack of a better word, and how would you apply your privilege so that you can make sure you would protect who's important to you, right? And I really hope that message resonates. It's frustrating when it comes to the media, because the media is its own animal in its own sense, where they go ahead and are very front-facing about, like, oh yeah, we're going to be like right about whatever, where the reality, and everybody knows, is that it's a very, very, very close-knit group. And that's not even talking about audio media, right? But even when it comes to stuff like journalism. Pardon me. Coffee. I know it's 4:30, but yes, fully aware, and I will continue to have coffee later and later and later as well. And with that though, I remember so well from months ago that there was, with outreach to the media, of just asking for visibility, and it was astounding with the response, because if that doesn't scream transphobia, I don't know what does, because it's shrouded as protection, right? But it's ultimately screaming transphobia, because for one, we're not all pretty little pink princesses. We don't need our white knights to run up and protect us. We're not all Heidi scared. Because that happens to a bunch of other people too. People are tough. Identifying a group of individuals and assuming that they're not able to go ahead and stand against the fire, that's discrimination. To even go farther and be like, oh, we don't want so-and-so to get hurt because of whatever, so you're deciding because of your beliefs how you're going to handle other people, that's discrimination. To not give anyone else the opportunity to really show their worth, their value, their voice, that's discrimination. Your fear of something going awry, that's discrimination. I understand the good-natured consideration of making sure that someone else doesn't get hurt. But are you the same type of person that's going to put your kid on a bicycle, right? But then wrap them all up in bubble wrap and never teach them how to fall, right? Is that kid ever going to learn to go ahead and take a bump, right? Unless you're, if you're not going to be a helicopter parent, same sort of concept. It's not up to media to determine whether or not, how am I supposed to phrase this? It's not up to the media to determine the validity of the voice of a community that wants to speak. So, for example, I know that there's a journalist in town who is afraid that a discussion of a story involving myself, even though ultimately a narrative isn't even a trans narrative if you really break it down. But again, because everyone immediately roots it to being a trans narrative, that's transphobia. But then to go ahead and assume that my story comes with risk of bullying. Oh, the transphobes are going to come out and be harassing. And to assume that that's something that I'm not prepared to handle, or to assume that that's not a risk I'm not willing to take in exchange for visibility for my community. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the one to be told, I'm not the one to be told my voice isn't valid. And I'm pretty sure I've made it clear that while the thought is incredibly valid and wanting to make sure that people don't get hurt, do you honestly think, and it doesn't matter what community it is, but do you honestly think that a marginalized community looking for visibility is going to gain visibility and gain stronger and gain health and gain support and gain allyship, right? And gain equity by taking them and putting them in the corner and patting them on the head, saying, no, no, honey, this one's mine. Shh, shh, right? You just go sit in the corner. That's not how it works. So the moral of my story is that Winnipeg media is transphobic. Period. Doesn't matter who you are, and it doesn't matter what family relations you have, personal connections you have, business relationships you have, and so on. If you're going to go ahead and default the concept of silencing a representative, right? Well, I shouldn't say a representative because there's I'm not part of a union or something like that, but I'm pretty sure that I can go ahead and say proudly that I'm part of Winnipeg's trans community. And I don't know how many people would argue that. But to go ahead and then say, no. Winnipeg doesn't want to hear you. Or, I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. The second is understandable, but if I'm asking to be heard, just tell me that you don't want to cover it because you don't want the backlash yourself. Okay? And even people who have had the opportunity to speak up, even in general concepts, to be absolutely terrified of using their platforms and just like push aside agendas and just call out the city for what it is, but terrified of the theory that, oh, if I'm looking for work and I go ahead and I leave a bad note about another workplace, that other workplace isn't going to hire me. Stop for that second right there. If there's a place that you don't agree with in terms of behavior, and you're afraid of speaking up so that should you need a job at that place one day, are you really that upset with how they're acting? I'm going to bank on no. And if even upstairs, right, if the boss says, don't talk about it, this is why there are so many malfunctions in our community. Because everyone wants to keep either a neutral look or keep their hands from getting dirty. But then they'll be more than happy to cover things that are filthy. Be like, I sure hope the city fixes that problem that I've allowed to continue by not taking any action when I've had the opportunity to do that. Right? So the next time you look in a mirror, if that's you who fit that bill, do yourself a massive favor, brush your teeth, spit out the toothpaste, rinse your mouth, and before you turn the bathroom light off, look in the mirror one more time and say, I'm a hypocrite and I'm going to make some cash today. Then turn the light off to save the power and then go to work. There's so many failures that have happened in our community in Lord knows how long. And all of them are easily resolvable with visibility, with discussion. People don't want to talk about difficult things because they're sensational and difficult to explain. But the reason why they're difficult to explain is because they're foreign and misunderstood concepts. But if we don't have them in our education system, and then considering the fact that the education system is also resolving generations later instead of immediately, where are these discussions supposed to go ahead and get solved? When do we expect in our own lifetimes to see and create change if we expect it to be someone else's issue or someone else, oh, they'll just get better eventually. By the time I die, it'll be a better world. That's a great moral story for yourself. By the time I die, it'll be a better world. That's something to really be proud about. I'm not saying everybody needs to flip tables, right? But what I am saying is to create a reality of using the platforms and the privileges that you've enabled yourself with by your own successes in life, and then paying it forward and recognizing that you can do one of two things. You can either be incredibly robotic and hypocritical, as I mentioned earlier, by sticking to the just the very, well, we don't want to talk about anything that people don't want to talk about. Do we not see the failure there? Or to visibly address things as they need to be done. I'm not saying, again, that people need to run around and look for problems. I feel like this microphone's rubbing on this, and I'm so sorry if that happens. Really, stream of consciousness. But I'm not saying people need to run out and go ahead and tackle every single thing, or literally go out being soldiers looking for every single problem under the sun. No, of course not. Of course not. What I am saying is that when something is dumb, and you know it's dumb, and you know that it's wrong, call it out. And if people question you for calling it out, the answer is, it was unethical to see happen. There's a human rights violation that's happening. Our city's malfunctioning, and this is what I can do to go ahead and make it better. Phrase it however you want. But turning your back on it and then just expecting things to just magically get fixed by someone else. I called it out a little while ago in the, who was it? I don't remember. But yeah, you want to go ahead and you want to have a great, clean, beautiful city. Who doesn't? You see a candy wrapper on the floor, right? Or the sidewalk or whatever it would be. You're so proud of a clean city. Are you just going to walk over that candy wrapper? Right? Or are you going to pick it up and throw it in the garbage? Or even worse, do you think you're being helpful by walking over the candy wrapper and then on your way, turning around, pointing back, saying, hey, there's a candy wrapper on the ground. Do you mind picking it up and throwing it out so we have a cleaner city? Would you do that? Right? Like, it's no different. It is no different. It is no different. It is no different. And if anyone ever tells you that the analogies are different, is because they are terrified of the controversy. Because the only thing that makes it more difficult to go ahead and pick up a candy wrapper and throw it in the garbage, right, versus standing up against discrimination, is that people who are discriminating are insensitive, and then you have to make a decision whether you're going to go ahead and defend a human being and validate their worth in exchange for upsetting somebody, if not confusing them, or abandoning them. That's the difference. The fact that one person exists, a human being exists, and you need to make a conscious decision if they're valuable to you or not, versus taking a candy wrapper and throwing it in the garbage. Because otherwise the goal is the same. There's filth, the filth doesn't belong, right? Let's pick up the garbage and let's throw out the discrimination. Right? Instead of expecting someone else to do it and then praising them for it. So I digress. The rest of it's otherwise, in terms of a stream of consciousness, I've been like I said, I've been working, right? With obviously work. I'm actually still working on a workbook right now, and like I said, I've appreciated the opportunity for other people to reach out to me, just asking for feedback, and and excuse me, and even like I said, to have conversations with organizations such as Clinic and CMHA and so on, of asking, like, what can we do, right? Like, how do we, like, where do we belong in this, like, how can we use our strengths to create solutions? And then, yeah, it's still, I still think about, I know I squawked about it in a brief video not terribly long ago. Oh, I can't wait for these to get done. These are so overdue. But still think about, like I said, I rambled about it, but just a phone call that I ended up having to make to the police 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Time flies. That's all I know. But I still think about it. I think about it every day, and a lot of reasons with again, just talking about systemic failures, about where people come with this concept of privilege, that they have the ability to just control others and not care and think it's okay, and to just dehumanize the value of another person. It's upsetting. And to think about the effects that happen to people beyond that, right? Like the lingering effects that happen to people who have been conditioned to receive abuse is, it's sad. It's incredibly sad. And and not to use whatever the correct word is, reprogramming, but to literally have to reprogram your life to get out of that area of recognize that things that are different are not necessarily bad, right? To find yourself into a place where to just be entirely open-minded to a new, like, every breath is a new breath of fresh air, kind of. Does that make sense? Because it's years of reprogramming, of getting away from the trauma that happens with being abused on the regular and being so conditioned to receive it. It's sad, and like I said, it's something that I think about daily. It's stuff I've thought about daily even before I've had to make the phone call. Hoping that I would either make the phone call or have affirmation that that phone call wasn't necessary anymore. Oh, why are you turning off? Please don't turn off on me right now. I really don't need you to turn off. One of my, I'm working on solving an issue that is essentially destroying my laptop's memory. But I digress. the the it sits in my head, and like I said, it even reminds me of a previous phone call that I was fortunate to receive a few years ago, and don't really feel like repeating that one. But even, I remember there was, my gosh, so many others. I remember seeing somebody when I was on vacation out east, and her and I were driving back to her place, and this haunting message comes on her car's dash from her ex, right? But it was haunting of the language, and I just remember the look on her face of mortification for the fact that I saw it, like oh my god, and just the language on it. Oh, And it's stuff like that that sits in my head where people think they can say those things and get away with it as if it doesn't matter. And it hurts because it completely destroys the soul of such a beautiful person and just smashes the potential of somebody who's like, who knows what they could peak, right? But it's just smashed down because you're worthless, F you, blah, blah, blah. You'll never find somebody better. You'll never do this. You don't deserve whatever. You're going to regret that. And just the fear that's thrown into their heads because of just this horrid language. Just unbelievable stuff. I don't know. I can only hope that all parties grow. I know nobody's perfect. There's no point even assuming. And I know that people grow. I know that people do terrible things and then reflect and, become better for themselves. And that's fantastic. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be in parallel with somebody getting abused, though. But my gosh, it's just some of that language that I've seen is haunting. Still thinking about it right now, as a matter of fact. And like I said, just the look. Like her face turned white and just utterly embarrassed. It's nuts. So nonetheless, though, I still think about when I had to call the police and de-escalate that situation because I was terrified for the safety of somebody incredibly important to me. Like I said in a previous video, I don't know how I would have felt, and I truly don't know how I would have felt to this day, if I got a return phone call from the police saying, thank you for calling us, and I'm sorry that it was too late. Like, just to stomach that concept is still baffling to me. But as far as I can understand, she's safe. And I hope it stays that way because she's good stuff. She's real good stuff. Really, really, really good stuff. So I'm hopeful that, like I said, that will always stay as an inspiration for her, that she knows that she's in a better place, right? That she's on the right path, facing forward, that she's allowed to trip, allowed to stumble. She's even allowed to turn back and look, right? Just keep walking forward. Build your life, right? You got it. You got your life, right? And so make the most of it. It's been a long ramble. Like I said, it's a stream of consciousness. Largely pointless. Scattered all over the place. Running report, killing time. Using it as an opportunity to put as an outlet. Call it a life update. Probably just save this and throw it on YouTube later too. But, yeah. It's almost 5. I think it's due for some lunch now. And by lunch I mean supper. I'll just call it at that. Can't really think of much else going on to ramble about. I can make a few anecdotes about things politically happening in the city, but I'm not even going to bother getting into the arguments about that with just emotional reasoning with a lot of people's opinions. And I feel and same thing even when it comes to what happened at TSN. I feel bad for the employees, obviously. I wonder if any of them were aware of Bell's like planning this for a while. I was sent a DM the other day asking if I knew. I haven't jumped in on it yet, but I'm going to confidently assume it's a credible source. The funny 1290 tag was trademarked back in October or something already, so that shoe was ready to fall. But it's also, I will say, right, in fairness, that lots of businesses will trademark just a lot of potential theories because you never know what's going to happen, and so it's much wiser to go ahead and trademark something and just keep it in the locker, right, as opposed to make a decision and then try to fight your way through whatever the options or whatever are. So I see both sides on that, but as I mentioned, that this and it's just the same with anything else. That rarely is this ever um, an impromptu thing. And even at the note, I'll even say, like, in a past life, I was part of when Future Shop was getting shut down. And I know a lot of people said a lot of sour things about how Future Shop executed it. And I'll use this as a really good opportunity to perhaps enlighten some people who may not realize why the suddenness is kind of the only option for a situation like this. I'm not saying that it's fun. Okay, and especially when it comes to Bell, considering all of the, like, hey, we've got billions of dollars of profits or whatever it was, right? But like to go ahead and just clearly not be in a position of struggling and to do this during a pandemic is gross. But when I was at Future Shop, um, like Future Shop was owned by Best Buy, and for the longest time, Christ, how long was it? Regardless, though, that the Best Buy model was a sales rep minimum wage with bonuses model, and the Future Shop model was a commissions based model. There were a lot of similarities, regardless, between the two, but ultimately is that you had a walk in, grab your product, and leave at Best Buy, and then at Future Shop you would have a commission salesperson, which you'd be getting a more involved experience with on paper. And ultimately, right, over years and years and years of analysis, right, it's become pretty obvious that the Best Buy model was the preferred model between the two. Um, I've had, like, when I was at Future Shop, I've had stocks, right, like with Best Buy at the time. And so, I'd be keeping my eyes on whatever. And just based on a lot of things that were happening in the market and paying attention to their stocks, um, I personally saw it coming, right? It was also my second job at the time, so I was like a little more lax about it regardless, but I saw it coming. And when it happened, though, yes, it was absolutely immediate. I remember, like, there were so many warning signs that were so off, right? Where normally when we would have meetings, that they typically would be like Sunday evening, kind of like when everyone's done work, right? And there's still, like, the store closed early, so there's still time in the evening to do something like that and whatever, right? And so that often was a normal thing, and especially if it was a quarterly thing, that it'd be scheduled between the locations and so on and so on. And so for this one to be explicitly at on a Saturday morning, and I'm pretty sure it was at 7 a.m., already was like a warning sign to me. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then, like I said, knowing the stocks, right, and I saw what direction they were going at the time. I'm like, okay, right, let's see what's happening here. And you show up, and there's a couple people in suits, right, that don't work there, never work there, never will work there. I'm like, okay, all right, let's just keep, like, all right, whatever. And I remember getting settled in, right, and sat on top of the ladder like I normally do, because not like I'm tall enough, right? And I'm pretty sure it was 7 o'clock, might have been 9 o'clock, I don't remember, but it was like, no, 7 o'clock's fine, because the store would have normally opened around 9 or 10, so obviously we wanted to get that done early-ish. And it was like, however it went, but it was just like, sorry to say, Future Shop's closed. Like, in the back of my head, is like, finally. I've been working at Future Shop for years, and I've been struggling. It's funny, I'm just kind of reflecting on this right now because I started working at Future Shop just for some extra cash. And like I said, it was my second job. And so I was, obviously going through the holiday season, make some money, right? And then the holiday hangover was always brutal. January, February, 8 billion returns and no one's shopping because whatever. And then spring would pick up a little bit, and then summer would get a little busy again because of back to school, right? And then also a lot of home theater. Like spring was always really good when it came to home theater, and especially in a past life, really good for car audio. But then that was really good for like bigger ticket type of things, right? Home renos and the whole nine. And then fall would come close and it's back to school, so all that again, and then the holiday season, and so all of that time, I'm like, oh, I want out, right? Like but I'm like, I can't figure out when a good time is because, like everything was becoming a trend. I'm like, I don't know, whatever, right? And so every single time that the season would roll over and get through the Christmas season, I'd be telling myself in the back of my head, like, is this it? Like, is this the year that I call it a night? And by the time it came around, I think it was in April, I can't remember. Right? But nonetheless, so that, when finally, like, okay, Future Shop's closed, in the back of my head, I'm like, finally, perfect, right? I've been looking for a reason to get out of here, and now they throw me out. Like, I literally told one of my bosses at one point in the previous year that I don't care anymore. And I was hoping to just be like, should we let you go? And then I'm like, yeah, I guess, right? But no, even then, I'm like, okay, well, hope you feel better, and just send me back. I'm like, okay, right? So nonetheless, though, like I said, my experience is unique in a sense, but I also will say, and I remember actually some people were talking to me about this during the event because of how sudden it was. And similarly enough, when it comes to radio, if you give somebody, let's say, your 2 weeks notice, but then you still give them the opportunity to be in a volatile workspace, and by volatile I mean that you're able to manipulate a lot of the outcome. So at Future Shop, if I was told, actually I shouldn't use me as an example, right, because I couldn't, right, but let's just put it this way, that if I was to pull one of my staff over at Future Shop, pull them aside, and say, okay, so here's the deal, telling this to everybody, or even if we had it as a group meeting, whatever, right? But on date, Future Shop is closed. We're going to continue working until then, right? We're going to treat it as it is to be normal. We're going to go ahead and expect the warranties to continue to be sold because they're still going to be fulfilled. We're still going to go ahead and offer our services because they're still going to be fulfilled. And we're still going to go ahead and make sure to do profitability on this because we're still open. Do you honestly, legitimately believe that there would have been any true drive for any salespeople to sell? And even if they did, what wouldn't get sold at $1? Here's your receipt, buy. Right? And so understanding that, I'm not saying that what Bell did when they did was good at all. The more I think about it, is just deplorable. But ultimately, the risk of keeping somebody on air knowing that they're going to get terminated and hoping that they maintain their professionalism during a period of time is a risk that a lot of organizations aren't willing to take, is how it goes. To go ahead and have somebody who you hope keeps their honesty and their credibility so that when they are looking for a new job, that they don't have any blemishes on it, you'd assume would be reasonable. But if you find an individual who becomes incredibly salty about getting laid off when they don't want to be laid off and have no intentions on using their credibility to go ahead and work in another place that needs this experience to as credit, they could blow it up. So that would be hopefully an explanation about the suddenness. I have to underline though, Bell, holy Dinah, I could not look around my place fast enough to make sure that I had none of your product because wow, that was just Nah, nah, like gross, super gross, super duper gross, absolutely filthy. But and I feel bad. I loved listening to the at least on my end. I loved listening to the TSN 1290 morning show. I still remember that donation that I put down after Kevin O broke some broke something for Christmas. I remember that, right? But anyway, that what was it for? Salome? Might have been Salome. And yeah, and I remember I put down a question about how much those or how much like the value of the Christmas stuff Kevin O broke, and I said I'll go ahead and I'll put a donation in for that amount. And Jim Toth says $800, or it might have been Kevin who said it. Either or, someone said $800. I'm like, fine. And yeah, no, I threw an $800 donation down. I was proud about that to just be able to participate with an event like that. Um, I'm gonna miss hearing that morning show. I like at full disclosure, I haven't listened to it anywhere near as much as when I would be driving to work. Um, for all obvious reasons, right? Because when I'm at home, I'm typically listening to music, or I do appreciate just some silence. But the times that I did tune in and get to hear them were always pleasant. I appreciated being able to call in, air my thoughts, and so I may as well use this as an opportunity to just share my thanks for that team, for the opportunities to just be vocal on the show and participate in my own little way there, right, with random tweets or like I said, throwing that donation down and just whatever else. So my condolences to that entire squad, and I truly believe that their professionalism will take them places and will likely find themselves into great modes of success in the near future. And so, just a little reflection on that there. But now this is an exceptional ramble, and I got to figure out why this workbook tried shutting down on me. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I doubt anyone made it all the way through, but if you did, thanks. I hope you have a good rest of your night.